The conflict in Tigray, Ethiopia, is a story of immense suffering. It's a story of a people under siege. In November 2020, war erupted in the Tigray region. The Ethiopian government, led by Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, launched a military offensive. Their target was the Tigray People's Liberation Front, or TPLF. The TPLF was the ruling party in Tigray. This conflict has spiraled into a humanitarian catastrophe. Thousands have been killed, millions have been displaced. The region is grappling with a severe famine. The United Nations has described it as one of the world's worst hunger crises, yet the world's response has been inadequate. The Ethiopian government has imposed a blockade on Tigray. This has severely restricted the flow of aid. Essential supplies like food, medicine and fuel are scarce. The government claims the blockade is necessary for security reasons, but it has had a devastating impact on the civilian population. The conflict in Tigray is a complex issue with a long history. However, the scale of human suffering demands immediate attention. The international community must act decisively to end the violence. It must ensure unhindered humanitarian access to those in dire need. The conflict in Tigray is not merely a political struggle. It has been marred by horrific acts of violence against civilians. Reports from international organizations, including the UN, paint a grim picture. They detail widespread human rights abuses. These include extrajudicial killings, mass rapes, and ethnic cleansing. The evidence of atrocities is overwhelming and difficult to ignore. Independent investigations like the one by the New Lines Institute have concluded that acts of genocide have occurred. The targeting of Tigrayan civilians based on their ethnicity points to a deliberate and systematic attempt to eliminate them. One of the most disturbing aspects of this conflict is the use of rape as a weapon of war. There have been countless reports of sexual violence against women and girls. These acts are not isolated incidents. They are part of a pattern of brutality aimed at terrorizing and subjugating the Tigrayan population. The Ethiopian government has repeatedly denied these allegations. They dismiss them as propaganda, but the sheer volume of evidence from credible sources suggests otherwise. The international community cannot afford to turn a blind eye to these atrocities. The world has largely failed to respond effectively to the crisis in Tigray. Despite the overwhelming evidence of atrocities and the dire humanitarian situation, the international community has not taken decisive action. The UN Security Council has been divided on the issue, with some permanent members like China and Russia blocking attempts at imposing sanctions or taking stronger measures. The African Union has also been criticized for its muted response. While it has appointed a special envoy to mediate the conflict, there has been little progress towards a peaceful resolution. The international community's inaction has emboldened the Ethiopian government and allowed the perpetrators of these crimes to act with impunity. The reasons for this inaction are complex. Some experts point to the strategic importance of Ethiopia in the Horn of Africa region. They argue that Western powers are hesitant to take strong action against a key ally in a volatile region. Others argue that the international community is suffering from compassion fatigue after years of protracted conflicts in other parts of the world. Whatever the reasons, the consequences of inaction are devastating. The people of Tigray are left to suffer while the world watches. This failure to act sets a dangerous precedent. It sends a message that gross human rights violations can be committed with impunity. The crisis in Tigray demands a multifaceted response. The first and most urgent step is to end the violence. The international community must exert pressure on all parties to the conflict to agree to a ceasefire and engage in meaningful dialogue. The African Union, with the support of the UN, should take the lead in mediating a political solution. Secondly, the humanitarian blockade must be lifted immediately. The Ethiopian government must grant unhindered access to humanitarian organizations to deliver aid to those in need. The international community must also scale up its humanitarian assistance to prevent a catastrophic famine. Thirdly, accountability for the atrocities committed is crucial. The international community should support the establishment of an independent mechanism to investigate and document human rights abuses. Those responsible for war crimes and crimes against humanity must be held accountable, regardless of their position or affiliation. Finally, lasting peace in Tigray requires addressing the root causes of the conflict. This includes addressing historical grievances, promoting inclusive governance, and ensuring the equitable distribution of resources. The international community must support efforts to foster reconciliation and rebuild trust between communities. The world cannot afford to ignore the plight of the Tigrayan people any longer. The time for action is now. Justice, accountability, and a commitment to lasting peace are essential to prevent further suffering and loss of life.